The classic symptom is projectile vomiting, and the vomit shoots out and gets everywhere. It gets onto surfaces and it gets into the air.
Projectile vomiting can release 30 million virus particles, yet with just 100 particles you can become infected.
A lot of people will have diarrhea as well. Trouble at both ends. You feel rotten, you have a temperature.
The stomach pains were really, really bad. It's excruciating, I would say.
On the same cruise as the Hugheses was the Woodcock family, Mum, Dad and twin boys Samuel and Joshua. And their trip took a turn for the worse when Joshua became ill on the 4th day of their cruise.
We were in a small cabin and he couldn't even make it from, which was a matter of feet, to the toilet in time when the diarrhoea came. We found a bucket and he literally sat cuddling that bucket for several hours. As soon as he moved, he just kept retching. I kept saying to him, do you want me to give you a cuddle? And he said, no, it hurts so much.
Any passenger or crew member could have carried the virus on board, and once on a ship, it spreads like wildfire.
When the cruise finishes and the next lot of passengers are coming on, they can pick up the virus from the environment, from surfaces that haven't been cleaned properly, and start the whole thing over again.
The cruise operators on the Sea Princess had plans in place for such outbreaks. In order to limit the spread, the sick would be confined to their cabins and free 24-hour room service was to be provided.
I tried to phone room service and I was in a queue for about 30 minutes, 3/4 of an hour.
And when I did get through to them, it took a further 2.5 hours for them to actually deliver the food to me.
In addition, specially trained crew members in protective suits were assigned to disinfect rooms.
There were lots of surfaces in the cabin that you touch with your hands, the air conditioning controls, the light switches, the door handles. Not all of these things were cleaned. I would have thought that these were the things that the hit squad would have focused on in order to make sure that they reduced the risk of the virus spreading.
On the morning of Paul and Fran's wedding, the ship's doctor finally gave Paul the all clear, little more than an hour before the ceremony.
I was still feeling quite, but not as bad as I was before, but still quite bad.
For richer, for poorer.
For richer or poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
The video looks as though everything's fine and dandy, but you put a brave face on those things and try and get through it as best you can.
I seal my love for you.
I seal my love for you.
Not feeling on top form by all means.
I would now officially like to present Mr. and Mrs. Paul Hughes.
With Paul on the mend, the newlyweds were looking forward to their wedding night. But then Fran fell ill.
It's fair to say that we weren't really in the mood for much romance at the time, no. It's a bit of a passion killer, yeah, to say the least.
The next morning, Paul called the doctor for me. It took them 4.5 hours to actually get to me, and then I was quarantined to the room for the rest of the cruise.
Of the 22 people that made up the wedding party, 10 got ill, in sickness or in health indeed. By this time, the cruise operators thought it necessary to cut the holiday short by a day in order for a prolonged and comprehensive disinfection of the ship.
If they need to bring it back for the day's worth of cleaning, then it wasn't cleaned properly in the first place, in my opinion.
I was very, very angry that they hadn't done this the previous week. And that would have prevented a lot of people becoming ill.
Our investigation has revealed it's not the first or indeed the second time the Sea Princess has been hit by the norovirus. It's the third. Each outbreak happened back to back on consecutive cruises, and each time the number of people infected had grown.
I'm stunned and appalled that this is now the third cruise, and it took them 3 attempts to get to the stage that they decided they needed to do something more thorough with regard to sanitisation.
If you've got a second cruise when there are more passengers falling ill than on the first one, that to me is prima facie evidence that they haven't cleaned the ship properly of the virus. And if you've got a third cruise following where you have even more people infected, that proves it beyond any reasonable doubt that there is something wrong with the regime they've got, with the policy they've got for sorting out the norovirus on the ship.
Now, Princess Cruises maintain that health authorities are satisfied with their procedures, and they say safety and comfort of passengers and crew is their top priority. They say it's impossible to tell if the virus was left over from the previous cruise, and that they believed their hygiene procedures would greatly limit that possibility. They also say when they realised their usual measures weren't working, they took the ship out of service for an extra 24 hours.
Everyone in our film was given a full refund.
Well, that's all from Cruises Undercover, but we'll be exposing more of your holiday horrors next week here on ITV1. That's Tuesday at 8 p.m.
Next week on Holidays Undercover, the saucy surprises of a sunshine getaway.
I must have led a sheltered life because I saw more men's bits in that 2 weeks than I've seen in my lifetime.
And caught on camera, the callous boys and girls of Carpe Diem selling membership of a worthless holiday club.
I still can't believe in my heart that that girl literally sat there and ripped us off.